How did you know that ceremony was something you needed in your life?
I knew. It was a feeling, and it was a very strong pull to where once I had discovered and learned about the medicine, it was almost like she was beckoning me. It's the only way I can really describe it. And it was a strong beckoning for a good 4 years before I finally was able to meet with her.
What did that feel like to be beckoned? What does that mean to you?
It means feeling called, like when you've wandered a little too far and your mother is calling to you. She's not really angry. She's just like calling out, and you kind of hear her in the distance, and you're like, "Oh, I need to go."
Right.
That's what it was like.
Huh. That's really cool.
It was.
And what was it that you were called to? What was it that you were seeking?
I personally was seeking healing for depression, which I had lived with for a good 20 years at that point.
Wow.
And
it's a long time.
It's a long time to feel like dying. And it was a smiling depression too, so I was able to keep it to myself for the most part.
Kind of high-functioning depression, would you say?
Yeah, I would. Mm-hmm. I was doing a lot of things. Outwardly, people didn't really know what I was going through, which a lot of that's been uncovered through ceremony. You know, I have quite a fortress around my emotions.
Have or had?
Still have, actually. Yeah. But she's poked some holes in it, and shown me where I can go in and release it. I wouldn't say that the walls have come down or anything, but that's probably good.
Having a certain amount of internal boundaries can be there for a reason.
Yeah. Exactly.
So where are you at with the depression these days?
Well, since April 13th, 2018, it was Friday the 13th on a full moon. That was my first ceremony with you. And ever since then, I've only experienced my symptoms of depression one time. And it was when I tried taking pharmaceutical drugs for what I thought was an attention deficit disorder. And that was less than a year ago when I went through that journey. And other than that, I say my depression was completely cured.
Wow.
It was a miracle, an absolute miracle.
And that's since the first time?
Yes.
So since the first time, just none of that. I mean, was it sort of a numb depression? Was it a lack of desire to live, or more of a desire to die? Like, what type of depression was it? How would you characterize this 20-year depression?
I would describe it like when I would try to enjoy anything in my life, like barbed wire wrapped around that joy and constricting it and not allowing me to enjoy anything in my life. So it was like, it was like that, like barbed wire around my heart and not allowing enjoyment. I described the feeling I had after, not during or immediately after my first meeting with her, but the day after, I described it as, wow, like I can actually enjoy existing. I've never known what this feels like. Just like wow, like wow. Yeah, this is what I've been missing.
It's a lot to miss.
Yeah.
Existential joy.
Yeah. It was a lot to miss. And the depression changed, in high school, it was more, I would only be able to kind of subdue it for a certain amount of time, and then it would come out through like cutting or really, really intense downtimes. But I think as becoming a father and into adulthood, I figured out ways to keep it at bay from affecting my outward life too much. I can see now how I was medicating myself quite a lot with alcohol and marijuana and, other things probably too. But
sure.
Yeah.
How has your relationship with substances changed since the first ceremony?
Since then, I definitely haven't drank alcohol to get drunk.
Right.
That desire was completely gone. And it's actually been about 15 months since I even had alcohol. And I don't miss it at all. And marijuana, though, I definitely continued my relationship with that plant. But only up until pretty recently. So it's maybe been almost 3 months since I've used cannabis.
Right.
But it took a lot for me to get there and realize how the way I was using it wasn't helping me.
Sure.
Anymore.
And I think it's fair to say that there are constructive and destructive uses of cannabis.
Yeah, absolutely. And even alcohol, But definitely letting go of what I was perceiving as addictive behaviors has been really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, better relationship with kids, better relationship with self, better relationship with substances.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then how did you dovetail into Kundalini yoga?
That's interesting. I was given some music to listen to after my first ceremony. And what I was really drawn to were these mantras by like Sanatam Kaur. And I didn't really know anything about them. I didn't know that they were based in Sikhism. I didn't know that they were used in Kundalini yoga, but they had a very cleansing, calming, meditative effect on me. And those were my go-to. And I was chanting for months before I discovered Kundalini yoga. But I went to Kundalini yoga because I was feeling a lot of energy. I was having, some people call it an awakening process, which now I think is probably everyone's birthright to go through and have that awakening process. But we're not really taught about it. And I was having a hard time at work, like handling the energy. And
What was happening?
I was feeling it was like electricity up my forearms into my palms and fingers. And I was having to take a lot of breaks and just kind of breathe and do a lot of heavy exhalations and yawns and shaking a lot.
Just like shift the energy out.
Yeah, exactly. Just like shake it off a lot. And then I learned about Kundalini awakening symptoms, and that really lined up with what I was going through. So then I started going to Kundalini yoga classes because I thought that would help. And it did. It really helped contain the energy. And then I went to a camp for men, and it was Kundalini yoga. And it really grounded me and gave me a little more control over that energy. And this practice, the Kundalini yoga, has really carried me through this whole awakening process and the unfolding. It's carried me. It's made it, I would say it's made it easier, but also just kept me from like losing my mind through it. I mean, and it's interesting because a lot of people go to Kundalini yoga to induce that awakening process. Right. And it does do that.
Right.
It really does.
So when you got to Kundalini yoga, were you already having that awakening?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It was already happening. I think I had done 3 ceremonies by that point. And I was also microdosing ayahuasca. And I think that just kind of opened my channels up and allowed that to rise up. Maybe before I was like physically, spiritually, and mentally ready for it, which was why I was, having a difficult time. But from what I hear, that can also be very normal as that's happening.
And it can happen totally spontaneously too.
Yeah.
There's one of the things that a teacher of mine talks about that I like, where sometimes there's this balance between stability and ecstasy. And a lot of us, we want to jump for ecstasy. But if we don't have the stability, then it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
It's a chaotic process, and it just can push us even further out of grounding. So it's
absolutely.
I think it's great that within Kundalini yoga you found that ability to also, you were already having the expansion, but you found a way to like ground it down.
Yes.
I think that's really powerful.
It has been.
And it's one thing I've noticed in a lot of people that ayahuasca, like just ayahuasca in itself, is not enough, Just going to ceremony, it changed lives profoundly, but it doesn't provide a step-by-step path. It doesn't provide... It can provide the next step. That's common, right?
Yeah.
Like the next step is, grandmother ayahuasca says, hey, the next step for you, you really need to do this. I mean, I've experienced that at least a dozen times, but it's still not a path. It's a step on the path, but not a path. And I've noticed that a lot of people, whether it's different traditions of meditation, that's obviously the most common, is different traditions of yoga and meditation that people get into after ceremony. So
yeah,
I think and alternatively, kind of the other side of that coin is people who end up doing a lot of therapy. They just it's like, oh geez,
yeah, she kind of shows you
I've got a lot to work through here.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of material I need to work through here. I think that she herself often shows people which direction to walk in. She's like, you come to a fork in the road, and she's like, oh yeah, you better go to therapy. You can go do some yoga. You need to go, I don't know, live in a cave or something.
That happens too, doesn't it?
You need to go move to another continent and live in the jungle for a while. Or whatever. You need to go be a corporate accountant. I don't know. I don't know, what everyone's path is.
Yeah. She kind of empowers you to make that choice too.
Yeah. And to see the possibilities. So often we know that something's not working, but we can't even see the possibilities that are there. And she says, hey, you can actually do this. You can do this thing.
Yeah.
you didn't think you could, but I'm telling you, you actually can just do that thing. Like being like that wise elder that just tells you, you have it in you to go do this.
Yeah.
So how has that been, the two combined for you, the ceremony and Kundalini yoga?
Combined has been interesting. The tradition, like traditional Kundalini yoga, does not condone the use of substances of any kind.
Right.
That's changing, though. There's a whole progressive wing of Kundalini yogis who are, familiar with the therapeutic use of psychedelics for transformation and healing, and that they have the same goals,
Right.
And my journey with Kundalini yoga has been like one long ayahuasca ceremony.
Right.
I mean, the way the yoga penetrates each level of your existence is very similar. And, it shows you things you don't want to see, but you need to see. And, you end up, deciding, okay, am I gonna face myself and make these changes and move forward? Or, but like grandmother shows you, okay, well, if you decide not to, it's probably not going to be pleasant, because now
That is such a big difference.
Yeah.
It's so true. Once we know, it's very different not knowing and being like, I'm sure it's fine. But then once you know, it becomes very difficult to turn away and pretend.
Yeah, you can't retreat back into your ignorance. That's gone now. Yeah. So
Ignorance is a great excuse, right? You can say, I didn't know any better. Like, how many times have people said this? I didn't know any better. It's a great excuse.
Yeah.
And then it can just be like, well, I'm just going to continue to not know any better. But then once we start knowing better, it becomes painful to stay within our own limitations and stay within our own toxic behavior. If I'm punching every person I see in the face and I don't see anything wrong with it, it's like, that's just what I do. It's just how I was taught. It's my whatever. But once we start to feel the pain that we've enacted on other people, and to feel the pain that we've enacted on ourselves, suddenly when we sensitize to all that, it's a whole new world. And we can't use the excuse, well, I didn't know any better, because as soon as you feel it viscerally,
yes,
you can't say I didn't know any better. It's like, no, you felt that in your body. You knew.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Going back to the question of how Kundalini yoga has been playing well with ceremony, it's been playing well. I won't say there was like a tug of war or anything between the two, because they have the same end goal. But like I found myself at the last ceremony about a month ago. And it had been over a year at that point since I had journeyed.
Mm-hmm.
And I had gone through this transformation through the yoga. And, I found myself doing full Kundalini yoga Kriya whilst on the medicine, which was actually really interesting, and I found myself chanting a lot of mantras during my journey, and it affected the journey quite a bit.
In what ways?
I can't say this was necessarily a good thing, because, but I was going through a lot of fear at a certain point. I think it was on the second night, because it was a 5-day. And there were all of these, there were things coming to eat me. And I was scared. And so I chanted this protection mantra that we chant every time we do Kundalini yoga. And it's to create a safe and sacred space and provide protection for doing the yoga. And so I did that, and it did create this bubble around me. And then the things that were going to consume me weren't able to penetrate it. In hindsight, though, I probably should have let the things eat me, because it would have been a good healing, probably.
Yeah.
But so in that respect, it's really, I don't know, in that journeying with the training I've had, it was interesting to play with it. Now, was it an enhancement or an effective way to journey? I don't know, but it was interesting. After certain ayahuasca journeys, I will have this lengthened sense of calmness and peace and serenity and connectedness. But if I don't do anything to cultivate that further, it can kind of dissipate. And what the yoga has done is cultivated those things. So I can maintain an elevated state of awareness, without needing to journey once a month or something,
Right.
So that's, and I believe she totally led me to Kundalini yoga. It was pretty much a straight path to it. And it's completely transformed my life, almost as profoundly as she did. Maybe more so because it's something that I can do to keep cultivating those qualities
in your daily life.
Yeah, exactly.
And on that note, so you're here at this ceremony, angeling and supporting, and do you want to talk at all about what she told you at the last time?
Sure. So the last ceremony, I think it was my 11th time drinking for a journey. And I had never purged before. All the other times I didn't purge. But this time I did. And she spoke to me very clearly, and she told me that my journey with her overall was over. She told me not to drink her anymore. She told me not to microdose her.
So no microdosing, no drinking the tea at the ceremony.
Yep. And it was interesting too. She even was like, and no Huachuma tomorrow either. I was like, and I was pleading with her because I had just made these commitments to her, because I felt that I wanted to serve the medicine and learn the ways. And I was going to go to Peru for an initiation in the Shipibo tradition. And I was very heartbroken and disillusioned when she told me this. And so I was in the midst of pleading with her, and she said, just go outside and walk it off. She literally said that, and then a kind of a portal of gentle light opened up, leading out back. And I looked at it, and then I was like, wait a minute, what? is this a test or something? Like, what is going on?
Right.
I really don't believe this is happening. And then she wouldn't say anything, and the portal just kind of stayed right there. And I'm like, and I'm like half lucid going through this too. So I'm like, okay, and I was crying. I walked, like, moped really out to the back and was just crying and kind of felt like I was melting and standing in the grass. And then she said, Forrest, I want you to enjoy your life. And I was like, okay. And I turned around, and we had started early, and plus it wasn't getting dark till like 10:30 at night anyway. So the sunset was right at the most beautiful point it can be at. Layers of clouds and colors. It was stunning without being, on any medicine. It was stunning. I walked closer, and a bald eagle flew over me. And then all these birds started rising up from the horizon where the water is, and over 100 herons. And I've been working with the heron energy since shortly after my first journey.
Right.
I sage with a heron feather that I found that's as long as my forearm, and their energy is all about precision and focus and discipline, which has really been, my journey with the Kundalini yoga. So in that moment, I'm like, okay. They were like signs, and still heartbroken though. It really, it feels like a breakup. But she came back strong later in the evening, surprisingly, because I thought it was done.
Right.
I was teaching a few of the other participants this meditation, a Kundalini yoga meditation. We were just hanging out around the fire, and then she came back into me and showed me like these beams of light coming down through them and out their third eyes as they were doing the meditation with me. And it was like this whole thing. And she was like reassuring me that I'm on the right path, and I'm doing what she told me to do. And she showed me some more love, because I needed it. I really needed it, because I felt so rejected. And and that message came through a few more times that evening. That I'm on the right path, and I just need to keep steady in doing what I'm doing. I want to say for now she doesn't have anything else for me.
Time to integrate.
Yeah, exactly.
Time to do what she told you to do.
Yeah. Hang up the phone.
Hang up the phone and get to work.
Yeah.
I went through a period like that too. It was at a really intense, large ceremony that I was participating in with one of my teachers in 2008. And I came to her. It was like a little hut out in the woods. Oh. And I came to her, and she's like, I already told you. Like, I told you what you need to go do. You need to go do it. You go do it. Like, go do what I said. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm working on it, but can we like just hang out? I miss you, I miss you, Granny. Can we just hang out? For now. And she's like, no, I told you what to do. Now go do it. And I took a fairly long, a year's long break from having the tea after that, because she told me to. And then the next time, years later, when I journeyed, then that started me down a new path of my own. personal growth and healing. But yeah, I've had several periods between then and now of sometimes years long without having any of the tea. And I find it that then when I know, and I work with what I've got, I integrate for my own personal process. And then I hit a point where I'm like, there's some healing to do here. And now I have many tools with which to heal myself. But often the most direct is, okay, time to participate in ceremony.
Yeah.
And then it just, here's what you're not seeing. Oh, I wasn't looking at that.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, that's what I was missing. Yeah. So I feel you on that, on the importance of taking time to integrate and taking time to step back and taking time to actually do the work and to follow a path, whatever your path is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
absolutely,
if you were to share any unsolicited advice or wisdom with someone that was interested in this type of working with plants and spiritual practice in general and self-discovery in general, what would you share? What's your pith wisdom?
Oh my. To listen. To listen to your heart and where it's leading you, what it's calling out for. And you can't really go wrong, you know? Because when you're ready, if you're ready for grandmother, she's gonna call you. You're gonna feel that pull.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go when you're not called, that's perfect too, because she's gonna give you exactly what you need.
Right.
You know, it's kind of a cliche, but there's a lot of wisdom in that saying, that all paths lead to the truth, and you almost need to choose one, or play around and sample the buffet of spiritual practices and see what suits you, and don't be afraid to experiment. And just because you're trying something out doesn't mean you have to completely dedicate your entire existence to it. Now, sure. You can, we have free will. We're sovereign and can dip in and out if we want to. It's, yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And thanks for being a part of the community.
It's been the greatest blessing. This community is so important. So important to me. I can't even imagine where I would be. I wouldn't be happy. I know that. So thank you.
Well, yeah.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure because I get to be a part of it too.
Yeah. It's great, isn't it?
It's pretty, I also feel very profoundly blessed. Yeah.
I hope so.
No, I feel very, very profoundly blessed. Thank you so much.